much, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you today, or at least it was the invitation from NavNet. And when NavNet invites you to do something or asks you to come and do it, you come and do it. And you'll note that you have two Lib Dem ministers here tonight. And
there's another one, not the minister, the other.
Yes, and various other Lib Dem former MPs, several former MPs and peers. That's NavNet power. But thank you very much indeed for inviting me to speak to you this evening. And in fact, I suddenly realised as I came along that this was my first official engagement as the parliamentary undersecretary. And as my ministerial colleagues would know, but you may not, Parliamentary Undersecretary of State is spelt P-U-S-S. And when I pointed that out to my kids, they said, "Mum, please don't be called that." But worse still, in one of my colleagues is, well, she's in the Wales office, and she is P-U-S-S-L, and her colleague, though, who is a Conservative, is P-U-S-S-C. I just leave that one. Anyway, so I'm not that. But I've been very impressed in what I've heard about your organisation and what you're trying to achieve, and I certainly wish you well for the future. It's extremely important, as you've heard. I mean, you heard an absolutely expert speech from Vince just now, with his deep knowledge and understanding of India. And I'm afraid mine is much more superficial, but I certainly identify the two-nation appearance that you can come across there. I have certainly seen change over time in the years that I've visited India, and that's obviously very encouraging, but clearly there is a huge amount of work still to do. DIFD funded Jeevika, gave it a grant in 2010, and that was for a project in Odisha, which was one of DIFD's key states. DIFD is currently working in the 3 poorest states and not in the other states in India. And this particular project was setting up sustainable livelihoods in honey production and marketing, and this was for 300 village women. They saw, my notes here tell me that they saw a doubling of the participants' income and a trebling of honey production. Now I had to think that didn't seem quite fair, that one would expect it to be a trebling of their income if they are trebling their production. And I hope that they weren't flooding the market, but I am rather concerned about that. But nevertheless, it was clearly a significant improvement in their situation. And as NavNet has mentioned, I have been fortunate over the last couple of years to visit India as well as Nepal and Pakistan. And that's been with the CPA and the IPU. And visiting India with the CPA, I saw the work that a number of civil society organisations were doing there, and it was extremely impressive, particularly water and sanitation, primary health centres, nutrition centres, as well as helping to try to bring in socially excluded groups, and it certainly was very impressive to see. And I was also struck by the ingenious ways in which they were, the communities were addressing the problems in front of them. So, for example, we went to a village where they had recently introduced toilets, they'd installed toilets. They hadn't yet got water to every household, but there was a standpipe in the village and people using buckets of water. But and you'll be familiar with this expression, the defecation field, which had been used as, prior to this, was outside the children's school. And they had to try to retrain everybody to use those toilets. And we heard a lot of positive things from women, for example, who felt safer having toilets next to their houses rather than having to go out into the fields at night. But they enlisted the support of the children And the children were so enthusiastic, flexible, ready to take up this new challenge. And they would monitor this field outside their schools at night with whistles. And if an adult wandered in, not yet retrained, the children would blow whistles and other adults would come. And, you know, it was quite funny. As the children explained this to us, you could see a number of the adults looking sort of rather shamefaced, and yes, it had taken them a little while, and so on and so forth. But the enlisting of the children to enthusiastically retrain the adults was extremely striking. And I also saw that when we met a group of women who were from the lower caste who had been removing night soil. And it was their children in school, now in school with other children who were not from that same caste, who were impressing upon their mothers that they no longer wanted them to do this. And it was their encouragement of the mothers, supported by civil society organisations which helped to provide work for these mothers, that helped to move them away from those practices. And as I say, I was most impressed by what we were seeing. And also the channeling of income to women and how transformative that was, that in the health centres, if women brought in other women who were going to give birth, they were given a small payment. The women would group together, and the group that we met had then bought buffaloes. They were then selling the milk, and it actually, one of the things that they commented on was how it kind of changed the power relations in their families and in their households. So you could see the effect of these small-scale interventions. You will know, I expect, that DIFD, the United Kingdom government, has moved back from a close aid relationship with India. You will also know how India is, in many ways, powering ahead. It's remarkable when you look at what they're doing in computing and engineering, many other areas. Our feeling was, the United Kingdom government's decision was, that we should move on in terms of our relationship with India, finish the projects that we were involved in, and focus on technical support. Now that is actually extremely important, because DIFD can draw upon experience around the world as to what works. And I certainly saw state governments involved in large-scale projects, trying to bring people out of poverty, extend education, improve health, and so on, but with the technical expertise that DIFD was providing as to how to do this most effectively. And that's the arrangement that we will be having going forward, emphasising that technical support rather than grant aid, which would be small scale for the requirements that are so obviously still there. But I look with some optimism at the involvement both of the Indian government and the state governments in terms of ensuring that the human development that is so clearly needed is being supported at a local level, because that is critical to India's future. There's not only obviously the moral case, but it is critical for the future prosperity of India, and it looks to China and it doesn't quite compete, it thinks sometimes. Its skilled workforce will help it to move ahead. And as Navin has mentioned, the new Prime Minister's recognition of the importance of development is very encouraging to see. So I think that it's very clear to all of you, it's clear to us. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and your organisation plays a key part in helping to secure the future of some of the poorest and most marginalised of people. That's still absolutely key. But one of the things that we must all do is make sure that as India, secures greater prosperity, so that prosperity is spread throughout the whole population. Thank you very much indeed.